Everybody else has already said that, pal. Thanks for chiming in. Radio is never going to die. The ease and simplicity of the format and the effect of the format will keep it alive. People say that radio is died many times. And it's been film and television and cable and the internet that's killed it, but it's never died. It never does die. Technically, this is radio. To me, this is radio. It's got pictures. Sure. I love the idea of an audio medium where somebody listens and activates the brain cells or the imagination, or even can be a transitory thing. You're doing the dishes, or you're doing making something to eat, or whatever, driving. It doesn't matter. You got something that someone is saying either in the background or in the foreground. And immediately you put a picture in your mind. Put a picture in your mind. It might be what I look like. What the hell does this guy look like? I did used to work in radio. And I did meet some people that listened to my show. See, this is why I'm familiar with the concept of you got a tiny audience, pal. I had a tiny audience, but I did in a tiny town, in a tiny region, and there was something very gratifying about it. And meeting people that listened to you, either talking to them over the phone or meeting them in person. And it's kind of gratifying, but it's also very humbling. Because you don't pick who gets to listen to you, and if you're a snob, you might go, who are these people? When you run into them, you go, my God, who are you? And you're weird. Yeah, maybe they look, maybe they sound weird. But you're a guy in a radio booth. And from what I was always able to see in various radio stations, that's at least weird folks all around. I was one of the weird guys. I just happened to be behind the mic. So the idea of having an audience and having an idea of growing people who you never normally would have crossed paths with. And I have no idea who's listening to me. I have no idea who's watching me. That idea is very comfortable to me. I'm familiar with that idea. So I think this is fantastic. Which is why I want to keep doing it. And which is why I don't want to be caught with ideas and not a venue. I don't want to be caught with a place I can't put my stuff, if I want to quote George Carlin in a slightly different context. I need a place for my stuff. This is right now a place for my stuff, and I have another place for my stuff. Maybe I need a bigger place for my stuff. I'm not there. Maybe someday I will need a bigger place for my stuff. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure something's going to get in the way for me. It might be me. It might be things going on, work. It might be family. It might be friends. It might be the neighborhood or the surrounding environment. It might be a person of one nature or another. My time might shrink. But this is something I want to go back to. Okay, look, this is an idea that might need a little bit more exploration. I have referred to radio when someone that I work with or somebody that I know finds out, oh, you were in radio? Yeah. Well, wow, that must have been great. Well, why aren't you doing it anymore? Well, I'm not as good as a lot of the other people who do it. There's many reasons why I'm not in it. I left, and I did something else. And that was great. And I loved doing it, but it was also, look, a trained monkey could have done the job that I did, and did and does. A trained monkey can do it. I was the trained monkey. My paycheck suggested that. But it was... I really wouldn't have changed it for the world, and I do miss that kind of environment. I do miss that thrill. There is a thrill. There's a thrill when you're live and the chance of making a mistake is on the horizon. The chance of making a mistake is lurking around the corner. every corner, every break, every top of the hour, every drop, every commercial and spot, every time you're supposed to be on, every time you've got to hit the post, all of those things. Anything can go wrong, and does, and you better be ready to make it look like you didn't do anything you didn't intend to. Or my philosophy at one point was, I can acknowledge that I made a mistake. I did. I acknowledged that I made a mistake. I took the audio from The Simpsons. Homer Simpson, he had a problem with the I think it's when Homer goes back to college. And Homer had a problem with a simulator, a test simulator at the nuclear power plant, and it went wrong. And Homer's response to a simulated meltdown was, I'm going to lose my job just because I'm dangerously unqualified. Except it sounded more like Homer. And I played that. I had that as a drop. If ever there was a problem, I had that at a moment's notice. I could click, boom, hit it. And, I wanted to hit it, in fact. I wanted to. I didn't want to make mistakes, but I wanted to take the wind out of my sails. My idea was, I am here. I'm not going to take myself too serious. My ego is not going to get too big. Good Lord, if it does, you got a problem. And like anything, that was an industry, that was an environment, that was industry's not really the right word, but that was an area, that was a world where you could find egos that were pretty big and bigger than necessary. I wasn't going to be that guy. Maybe if I did well, maybe if I did really, really well, it was inevitable. But I didn't do really, really well. I went and did something else. There was a girl. A girl was involved, and that led to a different life and a different world. I ended up doing I did some commercials, I did some voiceovers, I did some news, I did writing and producing, I did voiceovers for news stories. I was still, in a way, in the area. But I wasn't at night. See, that was my station section. I was in the evening. I was an evening DJ. I had no intention of talking about this, and look, I just stumbled right in. And when meeting somebody, this happens, and this I heard about this before. I heard about the concept. People saying, "I met this guy that I listened to. The one that does the show? Yeah, that doc guy. Yeah, I met him at the state fair, and wow, he didn't look anything like he sounds." I've heard people say that before, and then I heard people say it to me. It's a thing. And that's the power of radio. That's one of the elements that makes you think. You're constantly thinking. You might not even you're probably not doing it intentionally at all. That's the magic. That's the power of radio. That's the power of radio plays and audio drama. It's extremely powerful. There is nothing like it in the world. And the budget is so much more affordable than a Disney movie, than a Marvel movie, than a Star Wars movie. It's a completely different audience, of course. You do something completely different. Yes, of course. The power of radio is immense. You can go and get it anywhere. Yeah, some people don't. Some people are busy streaming. Some people are busy listening to their own collections. It's hard to say iPod. Put your iPod playlist, iTunes playlist in your car and that. People still do it, I'm sure, but it's not like they'll get satellite radio. Satellite radio, that's a thing. Not quite the same thing, closer than streaming, but there's certainly television. Television always has been a force. And it always has that strange allure that you can do so much more. You can connect on a different level with people, and that's possibly part of the problem with television. The connection that you have, you are beholden to their eyeballs. And our eyeballs are very critical at times. That's why you get people making fun of the lousy or the cheap or the primitive or early unsophisticated special effects of Star Trek and Doctor Who. Or the Plan 9 from Outer Space, the old 50s movies and 60s movies. You can see the zipper in the guy's suit. That's not a creature from the depths of the ocean. It's a guy in a suit. Aside from the fact that it looks like it's a guy in a suit, I can see the suit. Yeah, and if you light it right, and if you shoot it right, and if you perform it right, and if the design's right, and if the circumstances are right, no one sees it or no one cares. With radio, it's not that nobody cares. The audience provides. The gray matter provides. Makes it all possible. It is magic. Magic exists. And that's the proof. And it's wonderful. It's one of the reasons it leans into the area of music. Music it's magic. It moves us on an emotional level. It can move us on an emotional level. It can connect to us in a very personal, intimate way. There's a number of different things music can do. When it connects to you, you may not have any choice. There's music that one of the kinds of music I listen to is movie soundtracks. Big surprise, he's a movie fan, and he likes movie soundtracks. And they're cheap, and I don't mean they're inexpensive. But the tricks movie soundtracks can use to hook you. John Williams is an absolute manipulative master. And some of this stuff's really good. But, but he's a hack. He stole all of his stuff. Okay, yes, all right. Yeah. But in the realm, almost every realm, in the realm of music, in the realm of drama, in the realm of, well, you hear this all around. Steal from the best. Is it an homage or is it theft? It can be both. It can be both. If you emulate, and if you're doing an homage to something, you can get something new. You can juxtapose it the right way. Boy, it's a long subject, and I've seen a couple of folks on YouTube talk about it, and there's some very interesting conversations. It's a subject I am not qualified to talk at any length about. I can tell you what I think and what I feel and what I know, which is very different from people who make and study and that. I don't think you need to be an expert to have an opinion on it, but my opinion only goes so far. Regardless, a guy like John Williams, much like a director like Steven Spielberg, they make their stuff in a bunker 2 miles below the Earth's crust on a molecular level, designed to make you feel. Aldous Huxley would probably identify them as problems. And they can be, yeah, sure, we can be distracted from the reality of our responsibilities in our world. But what we need now and again is something like that. And it is connected on. There's something about Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, that I connect to almost every time I see it. It's so good. It is so wonderful. And some things make me feel, catch my breath. I lost my breath. I got to catch it back. I got to get it back. And it's a movie about a guy swinging on a whip and stealing artifacts and shooting bad guys and saving his friends. And there's the girl. There's the girl from his past who he wronged, who shouldn't ever have been with, but there's still a thing there. There's still a thing. There's a lot that's implied, but there's a history, and there's feelings there now. And when they're put together under duress, and they have to protect each other and save each other and do what they need to do. What happens? Those feelings get working again. I'm talking about when Indy's all hurt and he's on the ship, and Marion is trying to clean him up and bashes him in the face with the mirror and all of those things. And, well, God damn it, Jones, where doesn't it hurt? Here. You know that he points to his elbow. And that's where she kisses him. And it's funny. It's hilarious. It's sweet. It's endearing. It's the two that struggle to work together but can't do it without each other. And it brings a smile to my face, and I laugh, and then, well, okay, he relents. Yeah, well, up here, that doesn't hurt so bad. Here isn't, he keeps pointing, and he finds himself unable to resist, and she certainly can't resist either. They've fallen for each other all over again. And it's so sweet. I'm such a softie. At times I'm such a cynical bastard, but other times I want to be wowed and swept away by, something very wonderful, something endearing and something magical and something romantic. And I'm caught up by it, and I love that, and I feel that every time. Yeah, I'm a sucker. Spielberg has made that possible. I've made part of it possible, but that bastard knows where to hit me. Those Pixar people, I say each time, those bastards at Pixar made me cry. I didn't cry, but it's dry in here. Regardless, they do something magical with pictures and sound, but really when they get down to it, it's all about the story and character. And radio, Pixar does it on film. Spielberg does it on film. Williams does it with his music. He does it with his music. The people that work, radio is very similar to what Pixar does. Pixar does visuals. They do visuals. But the voice comes from people. The actors have to do that, and the writers need to write it. And the story needs to be sharpened and crafted in a very careful way, and they do that. And radio can do that. Oh, you've heard lousy dialogue in a radio production. Everyone talks about how marvelous the radio production of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi is. Yeah, it is, but it also has some shitty writing. Is Brock Peters the guy who does the voice of Darth Vader in the radio play? I think it's Brock Peters, who's great. That whole cast is great in the radio productions. I like Brock Peters in Deep Space Nine because he's Sisko's dad. That I'm a sucker for. I think he was also in the 6th Star Trek movie. But regardless, there's some dialogue that the poor fella's got to read. And he is describing the character. Who's ever doing the character? Who's ever doing Darth Vader? Darth Vader taunts whoever he's with. And I don't remember if it's Luke or another character where he's talking about using the Force or using his lightsaber. And he's describing what he's doing. So it's so unnatural. It's absolutely takes me right out of it each time. But there's other parts that are wonderful. Wonderful. So when you have someone, and if you've heard any radio plays at any length, eventually somebody does that. Sometimes you're screwed, and you got to write like that. I'm holding my knife to your throat, and I'll slit it. I'll cut your veins open, and let your lifeblood spill onto this cobblestone floor. I mean, they do all the descriptive work that you would normally read, or that you would just see. You'd read it on the page in good prose, or you'd see it choreographed or designed. You'd see it. But unfortunately, some people do it and I did a radio play once when I was in college. And I copped to it, of course. It's not the right way to do it, but sometimes you're screwed. And when you just don't notice it when somebody's good enough not to do it, because they're good enough to write something other than that. It's hard to notice on radio when the writing's that good, because you don't notice it. It flies right by you naturally. And for that, you need the right dialogue, the right sound, something's got to be written the right way. You can't just adapt. It's not quite right just to simply take something, a script, especially a movie script, and just take it off of one page and put it on a page for a radio script. You can't just adapt it that way. That's difficult to realize. You're asking a lot of your Foley guy, your sound guy, your music guy. You can have a narrator, yeah, right. That's a convention that works. But even the narrator can't just read the description. It's not as simple as that. There has to be something the guy with his voice does. And when it is good, my God, you get sucked in. That's the world that I find amazing. I have always found it amazing. I have always found it miraculous. There's in my local area, as the Onion might refer to it, there was, it's 20 years ago, more than 25 years ago, probably 26 years ago, there was a fella in a radio station that I would listen to, and he was a genius. He was magic. He had a radio show. And it was in the evening when nobody was listening. That's how he got it. In fact, he got it as the guy before him got it out of contest. He won the radio show at a contest, and that guy didn't need the show, eventually was able to leave or do something else, and this guy had convinced management to put him in. And he was nothing less than a genius, like I said. This is a guy who did a radio show with dead air. Dead air. You don't do dead air on a radio show. You don't do dead air on a radio station. That's death. Dead air is death. People will change the radio station. You'll get fired. You should get fired. This guy did it regularly. I knew it was genius, at least for me, because I got hooked in and would listen to the guy's show. And the first time I heard the dead air, I thought, what's wrong with the radio? That's what you think. You think there's something wrong with the radio, or did I lose the signal? But I didn't have static. It wasn't fading out. This guy did it intentionally. And look, I guess I really can't say what anybody else did. What did I do? I leaned forward wherever I was to listen. Even if I was in the car, or if I was in my kitchen and the radio was on and I was cooking, I leaned in towards the radio. What's he gonna do next? When's he coming back? What's he gonna say now? How is he going to explain it? Will he even talk about it? Is he grabbing sound, a recording of an interview? What's he doing? I was rapt. I was totally hooked in. I could not change the station. That's not possible. That shouldn't be possible. And he did it. He did it multiple times. He was so good at it. He had a show, legendary show. I didn't hear it. I heard people talk about it. He did a show. At this time, I'm almost certain it was his 2-hour format. He didn't say a goddamned word. Well, that's not true. He had a sign-off. He had a sign-off for every hour, and he may have only signed off his traditional sign-off at the end of his second hour. Either he got there late, which he had done, and the theme song would play more than once. Or he was there the whole time, and there was an interview that I heard and read. I've read about this before. Maybe he's lying, because that's the kind of guy he is. He could tell you a tall tale. He could tell you a tall tale. He could tell you the most outrageous story, and you'd find out it's true, or maybe only a little bit of exaggeration. Or you tell you something that was outrageous or normal, and it would be a bold-faced lie. Anyway, he, according to him, he didn't have anything to say. He didn't have anything that he could do for the show. And he prepared relentlessly. This is a guy who did prepare. According to him, maybe he's lying. He prepared like nobody's business. He spent hours preparing. He made it sound like he just showed up, and sometimes he did just show, that he just started doing the show. It sounded like he just grabbed some story that was on the news and talked about it. That's one of the things he would do. Or he would talk about the music he would listen to. But it sounded like he just strolled right into the booth and let her rip. But the man was deceptively good with all of his preparation. But on this particular show, he says he had nothing to talk about. It was a situation of the current events. He just couldn't talk about anything that was going on, or there wasn't anything that was brand new. It was old stories that were lingering. Whatever it was, he couldn't bring himself to say anything. He couldn't do a bad show. He had done bad shows, but he did not, in his mind, what he was going to talk about was going to be wrong, bad, and wasn't going to work. And eventually callers called up and were wondering what happened. And then he put them on the air. And they'd ask, hey, what's going on? You still there? Are you there? Is your producer there? They'd ask for the producer. Well, he'd hang up on him. He'd put another guy on, same thing. Put another caller on, same thing. Eventually, he would put more than one caller on together, and they would talk together. That was the show. That was the show. His listeners, who were a strange bunch, a delightful motley assembly of the kind of people who would listen to his show. It was remarkable. So I've heard. And people have been looking for a recording of that thing since, if I'm right, it was 98, maybe 97, maybe 99, although I get the impression it was not that late. People have been talking about this show for decades. If it's recorded by somebody, his fans want it. I want it. I would love to hear it. At this point, it's probably far too talked about, far too so highly revered. Perhaps listening to it would kill it. That's enough rambling on radio for a video format. Thanks very much for tuning in. I appreciate you listening the whole way through, if in fact you did, or even if you just skipped all the way to the end. I'm not sure why you would do that, but if you did do that, I appreciate that just as much. Next time, perhaps return to review an episode of Cobra Kai I've already seen, or maybe Doctor Who, or another Twilight Zone episode. I was pleasantly surprised to see a decent number of views on my Twilight Zone review video. Fewer on YouTube, more on Bit Chute. Fantastic. Well done, Bit Chute. Anyway, appreciate the attention. Folks, you take care of yourselves. Thanks for stopping in. We'll see you next time. The last thing I should have is a microphone, because I'll talk and I'll use the damn thing.